All right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Thursday webinar with MBAC. As part of our digital marketing mini-series, we are delivering today's webinar on how to build your business using Google Analytics. So just a bit of housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded to our website. A follow-up email will also be sent with the presentation slides and resources following today's webinar. We also have a Q&A session at the end of our webinar, so please feel free to ask any questions while we are presenting in our chat. It should be located on your WebEx screen to the right in the chat section. And please also remember to select all panelists when entering your comment or question so that everyone on the panel can see and answer. So just a little bit about us. We are the Mississauga Business Enterprise Center, better known as MBEC, and we are part of the City of Mississauga's Economic Development Office. Our focus is to support our small businesses here in Mississauga. We hope to be your central source that you can count on to help you with small business information, resources, and guidance. So our team is here to provide any information and assistance necessary to starting or growing your business. We also have a number of resources such as these webinars, program information for starting or expanding, as well as business support programs that we deliver throughout the year. In addition, we also have relief programs available on our website for COVID-19 that can be accessed through our business relief portal. So on the panel today, my name is Amanpreet and I'm the project coordinator for the city's Digital Main Street program, which I will speak more about in just a minute. Also with me here today, I have Laura. Laura is our digital marketing consultant for the city, and Laura provides one-on-one digital marketing consultations for business owners and is part of MBEC's digital marketing initiatives. Along with us, we have Mona and Neha here today, also part of the Digital Main Street team. They are our digital experts, part of a team of 5 that provide free digital assistance to Main Street business owners in Mississauga.
Perfect. Well, thanks, Simon, for the introduction. We'll get right started into Google Analytics. So just a disclaimer before we start, this is more of an introductory, more on how you can use Google Analytics and how it would be effective for your business. We're going to go ahead and discuss the learning goals. So it'll be a basic understanding of Google Analytics for your business needs, how to analyze various reports to understand your user engagement on your website, and lastly, how to go above and beyond with Google Analytics.
Hi everyone, good morning. My name is Mona and I will be talking a bit about what is Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is essentially a free tool that allows you to track and analyze your data for your business in one platform. Google Analytics approach is to show you as a user the high-level data to make it easier to understand the analytics behind your business. It can track anything from your traffic, which is how many people are visiting your site, to the number of conversions, which is the number of those people who turn into customers by the end of their visit. So this webinar will mainly cover the high-end analytic features such as track and conversion that I just spoke about. But it is possible to take a look at everything else, more in-depth features and stuff that you may be able to discover on your own through the research and tools that we will provide you with at the end of the webinar. So this session, like Neha mentioned, is mainly targeted towards equipping you with an initial understanding and foundation to get you started on Google Analytics. So if you are looking to implement this platform onto your business, you would have to insert a piece of tracking code into the back end of every page that you wish to track on your site. So integrating this code into your backend HTML can be copy and pasted, or you may ask your web developer to do so once you have signed up for the platform. So moving on, we will talk a bit about why Google Analytics is beneficial to your business. So being able to analyze consumer data on your website provides insight on your customer that in-store shopping is not able to provide for your business. So with Google Analytics, you are able to track anything from the average age of your consumer to their interests and how they came across your website to the length of time that they spent on there. So this information can help you with gathering more intel on your target audience, which provides you with a better understanding of how to cater towards them. Unless you were to ask every customer walking into your store for this information, it simply wouldn't be possible to analyze that data without the help of Google Analytics. So for instance, you noticed through your analysis that a large number of customers are browsing a certain product page on your site. So simply knowing that this information provides you as the business owner with the knowledge that your consumers are more interested in that particular product. With this data, you are able to measure analytics to better cater to your specific business needs. So to illustrate what we have just discussed, we've set up a bit of a flowchart to support your understanding of how Google Analytics may be beneficial to your business needs. So the first step would be to acquire your customer insight. This involves tracking your audience, how they are inquired, and the certain behaviors that they are displaying on your site. For instance, this is the stage where Google Analytics would be tracking your customers' data and stores it in the database for your analysis. The customer could jump from page to page, interact with a number of features on your site, such as products, buttons, or social icon links, and you as the business owner would be provided with this data. So now that you've acquired this data, the next stage would be to track this customer engagement. Tracking this data helps you as a business owner to understand your audience and how you can provide for them to fulfill their needs as a consumer. So this stage will be where Google Analytics provides you with this data in the form of a report. So for this webinar, we will only be highlighting the three main reports, which are audience, acquisition, and behavior, which I will be touching upon later in the webinar in more depth. So there are, of course, more reports that are provided that will give you more of an in-depth look at your business analytics. And we will be, again, providing you with those tools and resources at the end of the presentation to take your understanding of Google Analytics even further. Lastly, the final and, of course, the most desirable stage is for your consumer on your page to convert as a customer. So after all that browsing, they were able to make a purchase of your products and services. So with this tracking information, you are now able to trace those steps taken by someone who was browsing your website and did not make a purchase, as well as someone who was browsing and reached that stage where they had purchased from your store. So having that information from both situations allows your business to take a look into what did work for one customer and implement those stages into the business model, as well as analyze what did specifically maybe not work for your other consumer.
So now we're going to go into the basics of Google Analytics for your business. We will be using a scenario, Mona's Bake Shop, which was previously done on our past webinars, which you can again see on the MBEC website. Furthermore, we'll get right into it.
So now that we have a basic understanding of what Google Analytics is and how it may be beneficial to your business, we will be taking a look at the various reports that are produced with the customer engagement data. So when we talk about engagement, we are simply highlighting the ways in which your customer engages with your site. To begin, we have the three basic reports that I had also mentioned before, which are audience, acquisition, and behavior. So these reports may be found at the left-hand navigation on the backend of Google Analytics, which we will be showing you later on in the webinar as we take a look at the user interface through a quick demo. So the first report, which are the audience reports, give you a better understanding of the characteristics of your user. So knowing who your target audience is gives you the ability to verify that you are reaching the right people. So these reports help to shape your marketing strategies. Audience reports highlight things such as the demographics of your customer, such as their age and gender, and they can also display your customers' interests in web content, such as the music that they may prefer, whether or not they like travel, and technology. So one of the more important parts of the audience report is the Google Analytics ability to anonymously report the location of your customer through the IP address of their technological device. So you can easily identify which geographical areas most of your customers are coming from, and then track how they are spending their time on your site. So let's say that you had a high amount of people visiting your site from a different country, but you are also noticing that your bounce rate, which is the rate at which people are leaving your site, is high. You can then come up with a different solution to lower that bounce rate, such as maybe translating your site into a different language, or and to note that you must enable those advertising features in the property settings to receive those demographic and interest reports. So we just have a quick example on how audience reports may benefit your business. So going back to the bake shop, we've noticed that there's a larger audience in Mississauga. And in order to cater to that audience, we've decided to offer free delivery in the city. So with Google Analytics, we were able to come up with this solution to seeing how many people are interested in the bake shop in our city. So the second report that which we'll be talking about are the acquisition reports, which are also located within the left-hand navigation section of Google Analytics, which again we'll be touching upon in the demo that will follow at the end of the webinar. So these reports are, the acquisition reports are mainly used to compare and track the results of your different marketing campaigns and strategies. So this will help you to make better marketing decisions by discovering which marketing strategies result in higher traffic, and this data is stored through the tracking code, which measures the acquisition of mediums are the means by which your user site are able to reach you. So some examples can include organic search results through Google, email marketing, or maybe your social or even source and prevent the medium were to be, if the source would be a search engine such as Google. So these are just a few key terms that will come up in your acquisition reports, and them from the resources that we will be providing for you at the end of the webinar. And a good indicator of, another term that you should also be aware of is a bounce rate. So a good indicator of how well your site is doing can be through traffic and bounce rates. So as we discussed earlier, traffic is the number of customers and consumers that are reaching your site. And bounce rates highlight the percentage of customers who leave the specific page on your site. So we've got another example from the bake shop for acquisition reports. So the bake shop notices an increase in sales through customers who received a promotional email that they had sent out for Valentine's Day. So due to there being an increase in sales through this email, the bake shop realized that the promotional email was working for them as a marketing campaign, and to be strategic, they've decided that for any upcoming holiday, they would be using these promotional emails. They would be sending them out to their customers, and hopefully they would be able to gather more sales through those promotional emails. And then the last report that we have are the behavior reports. So, which again, you can find on the left-hand navigation once you've logged into your Google Analytics. Just put it simply, behavior reports track how your user interacts with your website. The number of times that they click on a page, buttons, or maybe if they're playing a YouTube video on your site, it's recorded for your analysis so that you can take a look back and you can see which features on your page are working, which ones are not working. Maybe some of them have a higher bounce rate than the other, and you can kind of take a look and see what's working for your site and what's not working. So it basically records the specific actions of your customer into your database. our third example, we're again going to refer back to the bake shop. So the bake shop noticed a high bounce rate on the gift card purchase page, meaning that once the customers had reached the page, they would leave the site and they would not go through with their transaction. So this seemed a bit strange to the bake shop, and they started to look into it, and they noticed that there was a broken link. So they were customers with the transaction. So due to them realizing this, they were able to fix the backend, and they were able to let their customers go through with their transaction.
So now we're going to get a little bit deeper into how Google Analytics works. First, you would place a tracking code on the back end of the site. We will be discussing a little bit more about that tracking code and tags. By placing that tracking code on your website or the pages that you do want to get more insight from, you'll be able to track your customer engagement on your website. And with all that data, you'll be able to evaluate your engagement, implement more effective and efficient marketing strategies. Just a quick note, Google Analytics cannot collect data unless that tracking code is placed on the back end of every page you do wish to track on your website. Moving forward, we'll be talking about tags. Tags is a snippet of JavaScript that collects and sends the data to analytics from a website. So in your case, your business website, you can add the analytics tag directly to the HTML of each page of your site if you do have access or did create that website, or indirectly using a tag management system such as Google Tag Manager, which we will touch upon later in this presentation. I did create a easy flow chart for you guys to understand a little bit more about tags. So the analytic tag would be placed onto your website, and once it's placed in the back end on your HTML pages, whichever page you do want to track, it'll give you insight, and that insight will be, that data will be given to Google Analytics. So we will be using the example of Mona's Bake Shop. So just to introduce the business, right now during COVID and the situation, they are only offering curbside pickup. So her main goal is to sell her products online. She sells cupcakes, cookies, and cakes. And she did decide to spend a lot of money on promoting her products online, so investing in different campaigns in order to see what insight she gains the most out of these campaigns. She goes ahead and tells her web developer to place the tracking code on her business's website so she can get started with Google Analytics. Moving forward, we can see that she spent a lot of money on different social media campaigns through Instagram, Facebook, and Google Ads, and wants to know which platform is the most effective. And through her insight and analysis on Google Analytics, she noticed a significant amount of customers were reaching her website through her Facebook advertisements. And this led her to continue making more wise marketing strategies. She continued to use Google Analytics for her business goals, and now she's interested in seeing how long her customers are spending on her website. So Google Analytics is that is not the only feature that you're able to see. There's a lot more data and insight that you can get on your customers and conversion. And we're going to go ahead and do a quick demo of the back end, and Mona will go ahead and do that for us.
Okay, so because we don't have an actual website for the bake shop, we will be using the Google demo account, which is the analytics for the online Google store. So again, this will be like a very high level look at the interface. There's a lot to see here, and we could honestly spend hours on this information and the interface and all the features, but we'll be providing you with the resources at the end of the presentation. And we also highly suggest going through the Google Analytics certification process. They take you through each section of the interface. They would take you through all of the features in an interactive way, and it's super easy to learn. It just takes a bit of time, but it's something that we would definitely recommend. So moving on to the demo. As you can see here, we've got a couple graphs, and we've got the reports on the left side that I had mentioned earlier that contain the audience acquisition and behavior reports. So to start off, we'll click on audience, and then we go into the active users reports section. And then you can see here that you've got a line map. You can change the data on this line map by clicking the top tabs here. So you've got your 1-day active users, your 7-day active users, your 14 and 28-day active users. So this feature is great because it gives you a look at your returning and new customers. So it's just a good way to kind of gauge how many people are coming back to your site to view your products and services and so on. And then in terms of the demographics and like more information on your audience, you can find it down here. So if we were to click on demographics and then age, there's a graph that comes up. It's color coded. It shows you the age ranges, people from that age group that visited on each date. Let's say that you wanted to change that up and you wanted to look at the weekly view, you could do that as well. So it's really just yours to kind of explore and look through. But let's say you're not a visual learner, like in terms of graphs, you could just look at the data through one of these graphs down here. The age ranges are on the side. You can look at the users, the number of sessions, transactions. There's just a whole lot of information that you can gather from your audience. And then you could even go further and look at their interests, their location, what language they speak. So once you click on location, you've got this heat map that pops up and you can see exactly where your customers and users are located. So the darker regions are where you have the most customers. And then of course the lighter ones are where you don't have as many people viewing your website. So moving on to the second report, it's the acquisition report. So we'll click on acquisition, all traffic, and then source and medium. So if we scroll down, again, you've got the line graph at the top. You can switch up the metrics over here, set it to whatever you'd like to view. And then when you come down, you can see how your users were acquired. So again, just to recap, the acquisition reports are how the users came about to be on your site. So you can see that a certain percentage, well, the most percentage were from direct referrals, Google, and so on and so forth. Then you could also see where they're coming from in terms of your Google ads. You can check to see if they're working, your campaigns, etc. And then the third reports would be the behavior reports. Again, to recap, behavior reports are basically showcasing how your users interact on your website. So the certain tabs or features that they click and so on, bounce rate and all of that. So we'll click on behavior and then site content, content drill down. And this specific feature is really impressive because it kind of gives your it gives your like a site directory, and it's useful if you're trying to understand and the performance of content in a certain part of your website. So in terms of the Google store, you can see that there are a certain number, like a large number of users are using your are on the Google and redesign page, and then after that the home page, and so on. So there's really a lot to explore here. And then if you would like to share these reports or save them, you can also access all of those tools at the top right. And if you were to maybe look at something, reports from last year or the last month, you could also select the dates and so on. So that's just a quick overview of a demo of the user interface, and we'll be moving on to the next part of the presentation.
That was great. There's a lot you can gain out of Google Analytics. So ways you can take it to the next level. So I talked about two different Google systems that they provide that could help enhance your analytics. Firstly, Google Tag Manager. It is a free tag management system from Google, and it allows you to manage all of your website tags without editing that code. So it sends the data, again, of your website to other platforms such as Google and Facebook Analytics. Again, it is completely free, and it is an easy way to get that tag and add it onto their website backend. Secondly, Google Search Console. It is a free service that is offered by Google. It helps you maintain and troubleshoot your site's presence in Google search results and analyze keyword queries your business ranks for in search results. So it allows you to get a better understanding of just your a better understanding of your SEO and how you can improve and again make more smarter decisions with your business. So some key takeaways. So if you do have a website, we encourage to have Google Analytics and get that data and make more smarter decisions, because in the end of the day, it is more about the return on investment, and you want to spend your time on platforms that really helps you make those better decisions. Learn more about your customers and customize their experiences on your website. Really take that data and dive deep into it and see how you can make your website more user-friendly for your customers so you can get more conversion. Similar to how you know what your customers like based on what they buy in your store, Google Analytics allows you to know what your customers like, what they do, where they come from, and so much more that you can keep track of online. And we are ending this presentation with a bunch of resources. Like Mona said previously, the Google Analytics certification is very helpful. It really lets you dive deep into Google Analytics and all the features that they have. And we added a couple of more resources on Tag Manager, Search Console, and ways that you can also connect your Google Analytics with your website if you do have access with the back end, or we would recommend that you go ahead and tell your web developer. And we'll go right into the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Mona and Neha. Mona, could I ask if you keep it on the dashboard? I think we'll get a couple of questions there about it. Yep. First off, the Google Analytics certification that you guys just mentioned, is that free?
Yeah, it is free, and it's very helpful. There are a lot of videos as well that are in that certification. So if you are more of like a video learner, it's super helpful.
Yeah, I think you can also take the time to like go through everything on your own pace. Another question here is there a way to track every page on the website in one shot, or do we have to add the tracking to each page manually? So I believe they're talking about that code.
So in my understanding, you would add the tracking code onto every page that you would want to get your insight or data from.
Yeah, and I believe it's a one time. You only do it once to set it up.
I'll jump in here because there's a lot of site builders that actually give a spot at the beginning so that you don't actually manually have to go in every page. So Shopify has a place, Squarespace, I'm sure Wix does, WordPress does in the non-self-managed platform, and there's also plugins. So you don't, and so every time you add a page, you don't have to change that. It'll
That's
come
true.
in.
It could be in the header, just one time thing.
We had a question about adding it on your Shopify backend before our webinar, so I did go ahead and add that resource towards the end of the PowerPoint.
Okay. I did get a couple questions in my Q&A. So bounce rate. Can you explain what bounce rate is?
So bounce rate is essentially the percentage of customers that are and leave that specific page. So let's say someone is browsing your a section and they don't go on to your product page or anywhere else, they just completely leave your site, that would be increasing your bounce rate. So let's say it would go from like 20 to 25%, depending on how many users are leaving that specific site.
And if you want to get into details, Tag Manager lets you customize what bounce rate really means for you too. So you can actually set up triggers if you want to say, we want them on here for 30 seconds. And then after that, it's going to be considered a bounce too. So there is some on the next level, but pretty much bounce rate, you're right. Once it goes in one session to that page and then they leave, that's considered a bounce. I do have another one in my Q&A too. Are there generic metrics or targets that Google supplies to let you analyze how good your website is?
Yes, Google has pre-made views, targets, views, campaigns. They've got a lot of pre-made all of those metrics for very different and very specific businesses and industries. So if you wanted to go into the back end of that and really you could look through all of that, anything from like, let's say you were a law office to a bakery, they've got a lot of pre-made filters. So you wouldn't really have to customize it yourself. You could just use one of their templates.
So is there a link to something where we could just learn on that? And maybe if, I don't know if there is actually, I didn't realize there was that.
I believe it's covered in the Google's Analytics certification in the more advanced course, not the beginner one.
Okay. Yeah.
But we can definitely share a link afterwards.
Okay.
Can the code be added to Etsy?
It's no. Etsy, I do believe, I could be wrong, but I believe they have their own probably built-in analytics. A lot of these platforms do. So even if you don't do Google Analytics, they'll have a high-level analytics built in. Etsy's a little different because it's a marketplace. It's not your true owned domain. Whereas when we're talking about this is your website. You have a URL that you own, and then you can start tracking that. When it comes to a directory or a shared space, that's a little bit different, and you'd have to actually investigate into that platform, what kind of analytics they offer. Okay, I think somebody just wanted to know a little bit more about Google Tags. I don't know, did you get that too, Almond?
Yep. So for adding the tag in the backend of a server through HTML, where do I find the code?
So you can use a tag management system. The one that I mentioned was Google Tag Manager. There is a really easy way to connect your Google Analytics with your Google Tag Manager, and we will be sending a document towards the end on how you can do it. But what you would get is you would be able to make different tags through Google Tag Manager, get that tag, and then place it into your HTML code or the pages that you do want to get better insight on. And like Laura said before as well, that code can be used onto different platforms such as Shopify, Squarespace, and Wix.
Can you explain what a referral acquisition could be?
For sure. So a referral acquisition would basically mean the number of users that are visiting your site from another site. So let's say you had set up an Instagram ad and there was a user who saw your ad come up and they visited your website from that specific ad. It would count as a referral acquisition. It wouldn't just have to be social media either. You could have set up an ad on, let's say, Google or YouTube. So any traffic coming from another site onto your site is referred to as referral acquisition.
Thank you. I don't see any new questions here.
I have one. Someone said that they have yellow pages or a third party managing their website. How do they know if the business is already registered with Google Analytics?
You, oh,
I would assume that they wouldn't already have it registered. Uh,
I have a link here, so you can go to this link to see if it redirects you to that page, then you'll know. If it doesn't open it up, then you're not connected. So I'll just send it right here. So it's analytics.google.com.
And that is one of the things that has been a challenge. It's not just yellow pages. Even if you had a marketing company set up your website, you might not have access to all of that because they may do it, but you can request and you should make sure you do have full access under your own account. And then they just share the view. So they may house it on theirs when they set it up, but you can have full access to it. And I definitely recommend that you contact someone, whoever it is that designed it, or whether it's a third party like Yellow Pages, to make sure that you get in. And you don't want, and you could start over again, like there's a whole thing, but you want that historical data because you cannot be retroactive. You can't decide in a year to say, oh, I'm going to put that tracking code in and go, how come I don't have a year ago data? You cannot start collecting that data. So even if you're not going to be active on Google Analytics right now, please put the metrics in there so it can start to collect that meta tag into the website so that you can start tracking the data.
And going back to the question on whether or not there were custom made templates and metrics, I've actually just found that specific link for the lesson on Google Analytics that I'm just going to drop into the chat box. So if you click on that link, there will be a video explaining more about the pre-made templates.
What information is required to register for a Google Analytics account?
you would just need your necessary like account information, so your account name, your website name, the website URL. It's very simple. You don't need like anything. It's just your email and then account name and website. And then you can get started. And towards, again, like I said, we will be providing a document. So if you do think you can get started on getting that tracking code, there's an entire step-by-step process of how you can go ahead and do that.
So on that, there's another question about tag versus tracking code. And I know there's a lot of terms that get thrown around, and how does it work, and what is it? So there's the tracking code for Google Analytics that has to go onto your website, but the tag manager and tags are separate from that. So maybe you guys can explain a little more about the kind of things that you can be more specific and why you would even get into Tag Manager. Maybe just reshare that or put some more information around it.
Sorry.
I know it's a big one. It's really, it's kind of the specifics. Like Google Analytics lets you track the big stuff, right? Like it lets you track how many people kind of came, where are they going on your website, how long are they staying on it, and things like that. But Tag Manager, when you start to set up those tags and events, you can start tracking things like external links. How many times was links on a page sent out? How long were your YouTube videos watched on your page? How far did they scroll down on your page? Like there's a lot more specifics that you can do through Tag Manager. And I don't know if there's anything more that you guys might want to add to that.
I think that's
pretty much it.
Yeah.
It's just very granular, right? Like it just gets way more specific in your tracking.
Yeah, and I think it's because like the Google Tag Manager is just that. It's just a management of your tags, and so it doesn't really have any reporting features. So if you do want that insight, you would then have to link it to your Google Analytics account. And that's pretty much the main difference.
Good point. Let me see if we missed any other questions. Oh. I think my Q&A may be frozen here. that's it for me. Any other questions in the... It's overwhelming. If you want, we have 10 more minutes. If you want these guys to show you, Mona had to show you the dashboard, something specific, let us know on there because it's really cool. Like even with your social media, right? Which if you're spending a lot of time on Facebook, how much time, like how much traffic is coming from your Facebook, how much traffic's coming from your Instagram. And then if you start doing campaigns, I can't remember if you put in the UTM campaign builder in there too. You can actually get really granular, right? You can build out tracking codes. And I know most of you have seen it, right? Where you click on a link and you go, what are all those percentages and question marks and things? That's so that people can start to track. If you do an email campaign, it shows up in Google Analytics on exactly from where, and it can keep tracking it. So it just gets even more granular. I know this was the beginner one, but it's nice to know it's out there, right?
Yep.
It's cool.
I have a
I
question here. Yep.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
was saying I saw a question from Marwa.
Mhm.
So does Digital Marketing Squad offer services where they can set up Google Analytics for us and help us interpret the data? So in that case, yeah, we can definitely help you get started, as well as provide those resources depending on how your website is built. But for sure, feel free to reach out to the email aminpreet.bains@mississauga.ca, and she'll redirect you to a squad member and we can get started from there.
So, and on that note, I mean, you guys are great and you can help Main Street businesses, but getting started can be really overwhelming. And it is the setup, and you want to make sure that your data is not corrupt and you're getting the right information. It is good if you do have a web designer. This would be the person that would probably help you set it up from the get-go. A web designer, or maybe you do and you want to manage it yourself, but you want to hire someone, a digital marketing consultant, even just to pay that one off. I don't know how much people would charge, but sometimes it's worth the investment just to get it set up properly.
For sure.
And any other questions? And while you're looking for questions too, there is something I don't think you, the templates, the custom reports and the dashboards are up at the top, and you can play around with those too. So if you find, and this is something you might want to hire someone to do, is to set up a dashboard for you or a custom report, because what that does is that just collects certain things, and they're called widgets and you can move them around, but the report will start pulling in those key metrics in your plan that you want. Maybe you want to see page views, maybe you want to see bounce rate. Every month you can set it up and schedule it that it will get emailed to you. Now, the problem, I mean, it's great that it gets emailed to you, but it's only that 1 month data, and you probably would want to start comparing it. So the power really is in the real time, jumping in and comparing from one period to a next. But when you can actually get someone to help you create that custom report or that dashboard, it saves so much time because it just starts to pull in those main monthly metrics, and then you can start diving into campaigns and things like that. But having that one thing to look at, it's really helpful. I know I use them all the time, so I like my dashboards.
Another question here is, you said you can track viewership on your page. Can you route the tag on a video on your website?
You can track how many people view your YouTube video that's embedded onto your site. You can definitely track how many people are viewing that YouTube video.
Mona, there's a question. I think Sharon said, could Neha and Mona do a quick run through of how they would use Google Analytics if they were a small business? So if you could maybe go through the dashboard, we can show an example of a report and then how it could be useful. Or
yeah, for sure. I'll share my screen.
And while you're
Also,
doing that, I do have, oh, sorry, there's just a
sorry.
question about personal business account versus like a personal account versus a business account. And yes, you do need a Google business account to start tracking all of those things. And it will fall under the same one that you would use probably for your business. Google My Business and all of those kind of things. So if you don't have it already, sign up for a Google Business account.
Okay, so in terms of using Google Analytics for a small business, that is your customer base is smaller and not obviously as big as the store account, really getting to know your audience for specific business. So demographics first. So if you wanted to kind of go through an overview of who your customers are, you could.
Sorry, Mona, would you be able to repeat that? I don't know if it's glitchy for.
Sure.
Just repeat it.
So as I was saying, you could take a look further deep dive into your audience and the demographics and who your audience really is, because as a small business, getting to know your customer base and really being able to build off of that and focusing on your customer needs will really help you kind of take yourself to the next level. So understanding who your customers are, their age range, their gender, you can even take a look at their interests. So I believe for some, like you can take a look at what they kind of value, their lifestyle, hobbies. There's a whole bunch of information on this, and if any of the other panelists also want to jump in and talk a bit more about this, feel free to do so. But yeah, you can also.
I feel like location, so where your customers are located is very important, especially when you're sending out those campaigns and investing in those advertisements. So really getting a good understanding of where your customers are mainly coming from. That will also really help with your marketing decisions.
Yes, and then another one that I think is useful is the whether or not your customers are accessing your site from their mobile device or their to optimize your website for mobile use so that you have customers who can engage on both platforms and they're not just limited to using your site through desktop. So you can take a look here at how many customers are using your site through the desktop, mobile, tablet, and you can really like a very deep dive into that. And then another feature, acquisition. Let's say that you set up a Google ad campaign and you're wondering whether or not it works. You can take a look at those metrics over here. And then one other that we didn't talk about too much were the real-time reports. So with the real-time reports, you're able to see how many people are interacting and using your site in real time. So for instance, right now there are 41 active users on the site, and going back to before with a mobile and desktop version of the site, you can see how many are on their mobile and how many are on the desktop. So there is a who are using their mobile devices to access your site. So it would really be helpful to optimize your desktop site into a mobile site as well. And yeah, Neha, do you have anything more to add on?
No, those are the main features, even before we talked about behavior and acquisition. So those three reports are very important. You can gain a lot out of it. Like Ona was saying as well. Yeah, sorry, Emma, you were going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, on that note, we have a question here. Does it require ongoing experience or expertise to look after this?
Yes.
You could if you would like. Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. No,
Go ahead.
So yes,
I was thinking you could. No, you can go. It's fine.
So yeah, you do have to kind of be able to maintain and look through your reports and your analytics from time to time. It's not something that you set up and you kind of just leave on the back burner to kind of just sit around. It is something that you have to keep up with, because using Google Analytics is to see how your site works best for your business needs. But just having it set up and just leaving it there, it's not going to really be useful or beneficial to your business.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, you have to be the one to take all that data and then analyze it and see what to make from it, right? Do we need a good, reliable computer with high tech, like a high tech technology? Well, high tech fast to track it. Because it's opened up on your browser, as long as your computer is working, it should be fine. You don't need anything fancy or high tech.
We just had someone ask a little bit about Google Search Console. Can you just reiterate what